a parental figure that kind of every child needs, and that support that encourages you to have a YouTube page, and they're your only subscriber, and leaves the comments like Legos are cool, buddy.
I have to say this podcast is perfect because a half hour just doesn't do it for me anymore. So getting the behind the scenes, was that sort of the reason why you decided to start it?
Well, it's funny because yes, and I thought about the first time when we were in season 2 premiere, we couldn't really have a celebration with the fans or have anything publicly where they usually come and join us and celebrate. So I did it more for the fans of, well, let's celebrate together and we'll talk about stories behind the scenes that no one knew while we're getting ready for this episode. And as the season progressed, we just started talking more to guest stars and people behind the camera and producers and stunt coordinators and all that. And people found it fascinating. People were like, I love to hear that stuff. So we were like, okay, well, let's keep doing it. So it's more giving back to the fans and giving them behind the scenes stuff that they love. Because if you're a real diehard fan, you want to know how something was made or have a question of that day on set or what was the funniest story, what did that guest star's experience was like. So that kind of how it all started.
Yeah, and I also love the aspect with the AMAs. Like that's a cool little element. Is that something that you're doing on a regular basis, or just you're going to sprinkle in here and there?
I think we're going to sprinkle it here and there because we're scheduled to do it every Thursday, but we're going to sprinkle it for the summer into the fall. Okay. And so as of now, we're doing it every Thursday. So every Thursday, there will be someone hosting those. And the idea that until the show runs its course for the season, we will have somebody who can answer those questions for you. So if you missed us, for the podcast that day, and you wanted to talk to someone live, you could easily join us and ask a question that might have been not answered at the podcast. So it's actually perfect because if you missed the round of like, oh, they didn't answer that question, well, I'm going to ask it on Reddit.
I love that. I love that. But also, I think there's that element of getting a little bit of tea that people love that they wouldn't normally get. Like, do you kind of consult with the producers too about like how far up to the line you can go with asking and answering questions?
Well, we always have a limit of like, we can't give spoilers for the future episodes because that would ruin it for everybody. We can be as honest without, making a scene of like how that day was cold or something, or, what I had for lunch, or that was funny because that zipper in my costume that day broke, or, whatever stories they want to share. But every guest star that we have has been really great at sharing what organically they wanted to share. And it's all great. And it's all within the realm of like, not spoiling anything for anyone who hasn't seen future episodes or who hasn't seen the latest episode. As long as you've seen it, then we're good. We could talk about it. So it's like, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the last episode, probably don't listen to this part.
Exactly. And I also love the guest stars. I mean, like Fred Armisen, how awesome, are we going to be seeing more really cool, because you guys always have cool guest stars on the show.
We do have more cool guests coming up. In fact, in the next couple episodes, you will be seeing some really cool guest stars. I personally love, in next week's episode, we get to meet Guillermo's family. And so we finally get to meet his family, and we'll get to see who that is and how that unfolds and all whatnot. But we also have a great episode tonight. And a lot of people you might recognize are people from the past might come out for a special event. So you never know.
Little Nick Kroll, maybe?
You never know.
You never know. But that's what I have to say. I did read that you were a fan of the original movie, which is always interesting because I remember when they were going to make the series, I was like, oh, they're messing with magic here. But you guys are making magic constantly. How did you feel about going on this journey with a film that you loved originally?
Well, what's funny? I love the film, but I loved it after I auditioned. I hadn't seen the film when I first auditioned, and then I saw it afterwards because I didn't want to be influenced by it to make my choices in my acting. And I'm glad I did because I think if I would have watched it, I would have been freaked out because it's so good that I would have freaked myself out at the audition. I would have been like, I have to do a good job because the movie's so good. And not watching it, I kind of give myself that peace of mind and going in, tainted, if you will, to the idea of what a character of Guillermo could be. Because there was no Guillermo in the movie, which is great, but there is Jackie's character, who's a familiar, who later on came in and actually directed one of the episodes in the first season. So we've actually worked with her. We worked with the original familiar, Jackie. And so it was nice to kind of do my own spin on it. But yeah, we know how good the movie is, and we know how diehard fans feel about the movie, and we always were just hopeful that they would understand that we're in the same world or the same tree, just different branch. And so we're all connected, and it's just and we've had those characters come and visit us and show how they live, harmoniously together, and they in the same world. So there's enough room for everyone in this world that Taika and Jermaine have created, such brilliant geniuses, that they created a world where like the sky's the limit. Like it's like you can create, and they went off to have other shows and stuff, and I clearly could see any of those characters from any other shows kind of intertwining from any other of their shows. So they've done a fantastic job. So I'm really happy that they created this world, and look at us now.
Me too. Me too. I can't get enough of it. And it's interesting how Guillermo was supposed to be an older guy. And so you sort of, this was that your sweater vest, and are these like your choices on costumes?
Yeah, I remember when I got the audition it was by basically going to a wine and cheese night. I met somebody, and I just got this audition. I read the script, and it was 20 years older than I am. So I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be right for the character. So I was like, oh, I'll age myself up. And I usually don't do this for auditions. I don't really like fully get into character dressed up. Maybe wear like a piece that feels like a character, obviously, or you feel like that character in this clothes, but never really dress up. And for this moment, I wanted to impress Allison Jones, who was the casting for the pilot and casting director. And I was like, I just want to impress her, such a great casting director. So I went to my closet, got a long sleeve orange shirt, a brown sweater vest, got some Harry Potter glasses, popped out the lens. I didn't know any Guillermo's at the time that I could really look up to, except for Guillermo del Toro. And I remember I looked at a poster my writing partner had on her wall, and it was Guillermo del Toro's Monsters book, and it was like an illustration of him with this hair that was curled to the side. And I was like, that's it. I'll do my hair like that. And weirdly enough, he had those round glasses in the picture too. So I kind of did it out of that image, and then I went in hoping, well, if anything, I won't get the part, but I'll make an impression. And I said, because no one on television would ever get dressed like this. No character on television would ever look like this. And here we are, 5 seasons later, going to 5 seasons.
And he's like had such a journey, because I remember the early Guillermo was very like wanting to be a vampire and doing everything. Now, like, you remind me, of of a mother with a bunch of kids who are out of control, and you're constantly herding cats. Is that sort of, I think Guillermo's the one in charge, not the vampires. Is that kind of what's happened now?
Yeah, I love the trajectory that we've seen Guillermo, where he didn't really talk the first season. He was kind of, people dismissed him as wallpaper and kind of like slept on him, for lack of a better word. But Guillermo's more powerful than any of them in the household as of now, because by, if you would have bothered to just learn his name, in his name alone, the power that he holds, de la cruz, which translates of the cross in Spanish, that guy should have never been allowed in that household.
No, they'd all be dead.
That guy should have never been allowed in the house. But the vampires are so self-absorbed and into their own world that's kind of where the comedy lives, is that they would have never even dared to ask him. They don't care. You're a human. You're garbage, Right. And so I love that that's how funny this show is, that's been planted from season 1, and we see season 2 and the Van Helsing lineage in his blood, and then we see that now he's basically a single mother raising. And though Laszlo does co-parent, but he is his good cop, bad cop moments with him. But it is kind of the sweetness that Guillermo gives as a maternal parental figure that kind of every child needs, and that support that encourages you to have a YouTube page, and they're your only subscriber, and leaves the comments like Legos are cool, buddy, their YouTube page, just to encourage a child. You want to encourage them, and he knows what it's like, because there's a quote in the season where he says, "My mom worked a lot of jobs when I was little, and I barely saw her, and no kid should have to deal with that." And so it was very touching to like give Colin a better experience, because he could have easily just kind of mimicked what he saw growing up, and he saw that and he's like, oh, for a good reason. His mother was working, to keep a roof over their heads and whatnot, but giving that nature versus nurture scenario a try. So yeah.
But also, there is that sweetness, but there also is that beautiful comedic timing that I often feel like that Jim Halpert from The Office, the looks, like the camera, where it's like everything's falling apart and you just look at the camera. Do you realize how amazing that is? And the timing is just so spot on, you know?
Well, it's funny. Those looks are never in the script, really. Like, so when we started the show, we were just told that we're aware that there's cameras, obviously, because of the documentary crew. And so it's very much like, if you ever feel the need to, you can break the fourth wall because it's there. But again, he's the only human in the room. So what they ended up doing was, whenever the vampires would say or do something, where in their world, that's fine. We're going to kill somebody and suck their blood. The camera would pan over to Guillermo, who's the human, who knows that there's there's things to be paid if you cross the line. There's there's repercussions for your actions, basically. And so whenever they pan to him, it's like that moment of panic, or that, like, please don't show this on camera, or that moment of like, did you hear what they said? Without saying it, because he doesn't say much the first season. His face does all the talking.
Yes. And it continues to do that, though, which is so amazing. I know that sadly the writers were saying there is going to be an end. How would you like to see Guillermo's story kind of move forward?
Well, I mean, I want him to be happy ultimately. I think that sometimes we get so stuck in the idea of what will make us happy. And if I have the perfect job and the perfect partner and the perfect life, I'll be happy. But you don't need to have materialistic things or certain things to make you happy. You can be happy and content in the life that you found yourself in. And I think that sometimes it's hard, because I think he had a tough childhood growing up. I think he was bullied. And I think it was aspirational for him to be a vampire because it was beautiful. You live forever. You're young if you become a vampire at a young age. You're fabulous. Your garments, you're just, something about you is sexy and appealing. And he wanted to be all those things. But sometimes you can take a different road and be those elements without having to necessarily be what was sold as a package. Mm-hmm. And I think by being a Van Helsing, he's become a badass. He's become more comfortable in his skin. He's stepped it up a notch. His outfits are changing; they're more fitted. His hairdo has changed a little bit. Like, he's becoming comfortable in his skin, and sometimes that's all you need. Is just completely love who you are, and then you can reciprocate that.
Okay, so hopefully by the time this wraps, he'll be living his best life, Guillermo, and
whatever that is,
Kind of is. Will we see more stunts from you also this season?
This season we just saw the night market episode, which is our biggest stunt up to date, which is amazing. It's like a mini movie. It was beautifully shot. Yana Gorskaya, our director, who's so amazing, directed that, and it was my favorite episode. I think one of my favorites for stunt was my favorite stunt episode of the season, and then my other favorite episode is coming up next week. So we have lots to look forward to.
That's amazing. That is fantastic. Well, the rest of this season, we look forward to on both accounts. It's nice. We get a little taste on TV, and then we get a little taste when, the podcast drops. So we will be following along with both. And I can't wait to watch the next episode. Should be cool.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much, Gina.
All right. Take care.
Bye.